So I wanted to take a little bit of time in this first episode here to talk a little bit about my history with Magic the Gathering, what this channel is about, why I love Sealed, and really what we'll be focusing on, what type of content you'll be able to find on this channel going forward. So I started playing Magic the Gathering back in 2004. My first ever deck was the Red-Green Stampede pre-constructed deck from Fifth Dawn. I actually bought it with one of my friends. He bought another sealed deck. I think it was the Rakdos, the red-black sealed deck from that same set, or maybe one of the other mirrored and block sets. And that rest of that summer in 2004, we played with those decks and sort of branched out into other pre-constructed decks, started to buy packs, and really just cracked in those packs to have fun and build and slot into new decks that we were playing around the kitchen table. Fast forward to 2007, and I attended my first pre-release event, and that was for Lorwyn, which released in October of 2007. And since then, Sealed has been by far my favorite format. I've played Standard, I've played Modern, I've played Pauper, I played mostly Commander or EDH now, but my favorite format to play is Sealed. What do I love about Sealed? Well, there's two things really. The first is that it's usually tied, where most people play Sealed, is around pre-releases. So it's always filled with sort of some of those memories of being able to first get your hands on the cards in a new set, really get introduced to a lot of the new mechanics. There's new things that are happening. The first pre-release event one of the first pre-release events I ever played in was the introduction of Planeswalkers. So it was really, everybody was sort of a buzz about what this new card type was, and how was this going to impact the decks that we were building, the formats we were playing in. But I love the fact that it has that association with those memories that are tied with those pre-releases, and that it's a sort of a lower stakes, has typically been a lower stakes format for me to play in. But I also love the fact that you have this limited card pool. I know you can get a similar thing in Draft, and I love Draft. I've done plenty of drafts in my time. But what I love about Sealed as a limited format is everybody gets their same card pool. You know what that card pool is going to be right up front. And there's a lot less pressure in Sealed than there is in Draft, either based off the fact that you have in Draft, you're potentially impacting other players by what you're drafting, or you have to sort of read and identify the different trends or signals or signs that you're seeing as the draft is going on. With Sealed, you have your cards, and you have to use what you have in that card pool to make the best deck possible. There's definitely more randomness that comes with that. There's definitely a lot more variation or variability in the pools that some people can get versus others, especially if you're in a bomb heavy format, or a format that has a handful of really impactful, really powerful cards. There's always going to be one or two folks that maybe open more of those in their pool than others, but finding the synergy within that chaos, finding and building the best deck you possibly can out of this very, very limited pool of 6 booster packs has always been something I've really, really loved. So why this channel? Why even put something like this together, or start focusing on Sealed? Well, when I was looking around, because I love Sealed so much, I wanted to see if there was any content related to Sealed, and there really isn't a ton of content. Limited Resources has been around for a long time, has been doing a lot of work and produced a lot of great content evaluating cards and talking about sets as it relates to a limited format or the limited formats. But their focus is mainly on Draft, and they don't have a lot of deck building or they don't have a lot of gameplay or things like that, stuff that I hope we can focus on this channel. And really the other, where there is Sealed content, is really focused on Arena or doing Sealed events or drafts in Arena. And while I love Arena, I think it's an amazing tool. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to jump right into Arena, and it's a great alternative to paper or to other forms of Magic when you can't find a place to play, if you don't have a local game store that you can go to. I love paper. I much prefer to open packs, and I was really looking for and trying to find some channels out there who were doing that type of thing, building decks with real packs, opening real packs and building them in paper, and I couldn't find a whole lot of that. So I thought maybe I'd put something out in the world. The other thing is, I was really looking for a way for me to improve my own deck building. I don't think being good at sealed is the most important thing to having fun playing Magic, especially in this particular format, especially in a format that exists mainly around the pre-releases. But for me, it was an opportunity to get more comfortable putting sealed decks together, have some practice. And I know I feel more comfortable and have more fun when I feel comfortable going into different types of events. So the more I can practice, the better it'll be for me. I'm hoping that by sharing some of this with others, that maybe they'll feel more comfortable as well. My goal is for this to be a place where people can go to build their confidence around sets, but really build their confidence in sort of understanding how to put those sealed decks together or work within what you have within a sealed pool, so that when you go to things like pre-releases, whether it's your first pre-release or your 100th pre-release, that you're having a good time and you're able to enjoy those events to the fullest. So let's talk a little bit about what this channel will focus on. I think there's going to be 4 main forms of content. The first and probably most likely to exist on this channel for a while will be sort of full deck builds. I'll start with opening packs, evaluating my card pool, building decks, reviewing my opening hands, sort of shuffling up and putting lands in there and doing a little bit of keeper or mulligan evaluations. And I really want that to be the main focus, and I think those full deck builds will be the main piece of content that will start on this channel, and then other things will be folded in. But I also would like to talk a little bit about in terms of new sets that are coming out, do set reviews, and talk about the sealed deck strategies that exist within them and how they might be different from the draft archetypes or the draft strategies that are both posted by Wizards of the Coast or that other channels might be reviewing. I also would love to bring some of the decks that I have, that I build at some of these in-person events that I've played in, and review those here. Take a little bit, dive into deeper, talk a little bit why I made the choices I made, and talk about how they performed within the environment that I play in at my game store. And occasionally, if I have an opportunity to do this, I would love to have some gameplay where we build the decks or take decks that we build from the full deck builds on this channel, or that I have from the sealed events that I go to, bring them on here and sort of play some gameplay out with them and just see how they perform against other decks. Today I'll be starting with a pre-release kit, and much of the content will be focused on specific limited environments, but I'd really love, and probably the specific limited environments that are happening at any one particular time. But I'd really love to try out some other fun sealed pools, maybe do some chaos pools, or put some packs together that might not have ever existed together in a limited pool, or even go back to some of the old sets, even back to Lorwyn or some of the other older sets, to look at what that environment was like and try to build some sealed decks from that as well. So with that, let's jump into today's build. So I'm going to be starting with a pre-release kit from Duskmourn House of Horror, and this is, I was able to play in the pre-release last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago, and this is the same type of pre-release kit that you're able to get at your local game store that you'll typically find when you join one of those pre-release events. So we'll be building with everything that exists inside here. The only difference between this and maybe some other sealed events that aren't focused specifically around a pre-release is that there is a pre-release promo card that can, in this case, for Duskmourn, can be included in your deck as well. But let's get open. What I really loved about this pre-release kit this time is it has these locked and unlocked tokens here that can be used with the rooms that you open or play with in your deck. Typically, a lot of the times, the different pieces on here, the different counters, I usually punch those out and they go into a bag, and I never use them again. But these locked and unlocked tokens here, or punch outs that you can punch out, they're a good thing to use actually during the rounds that you play to indicate whether or not that particular room has been locked or is locked or has been unlocked. But we'll put all that stuff aside here. Open up the rest of the box. So inside we got our spin down. Ooh, got yellow this time. In my pre-release kit for the event, I got green, I think. And we have our 6 packs of play boosters and our promo card here. There's also some other things in here like deck building advice, some of the mechanics here, things like that. This divider, I love these dividers for my card storage boxes because they're big, they stick up high enough, and you're able to put them in those boxes and keep my cards separated. Let's see what we got in our promo. So Marvin Murderous Mimic looks like is our promo, which is pretty awesome. I don't think pretty awesome for this sealed environment from what I've been able to pick up so far, but it is something that I am looking forward to maybe playing in Commander for that, but also have a little more punch outs there. So we'll put Marvin here so we can remember to use them in our deck and put this other stuff aside. And when I am going through and building or breaking down my sealed pool, I am definitely the type that opens all of my packs first. I used to be a 1 pack at a time guy where I would open it, look through it, sort them as I go, but I am now Gavin Verhey is probably can be credited for this. I'm now open all the packs first and lay them all out. I do separate out the tokens and lands so that they don't get in the way. Put those on the side, but then put everything that I get here into a pile and then come back and go through that pile to sort them out at the end. Put those over there. There's a lot of really impactful cards in these sets. A lot of cards that I'm really excited about. I think this set's focus on graveyard and enchantments is something that, and the way it was executed is really interesting. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get putting the cards together here. But opening all 6 packs, put them in a pile, and then I'll start sorting them by color. So actually that one can stay in there because that is non-basic. Put that there so we see what we have. When you're building these decks at your local game store, not console, that's nice. I always find it interesting who has brought their own lands with them. So I have my draft kit that I typically bring to this type of stuff where I have my sleeves, I have tokens, I have lands, just so that I can use my lands that I like to build from, and all my lands look the same. But if you're new to Magic the Gathering, or this is, I'll put that back in here. If you're new to Magic the Gathering, or pre-release is one of the first events you go to, then just know that all of your local game stores will have lands for you there for you to build, put into your deck and actually round out your overall seal deck. So we're looking for 40 cards here. Let's look to see what we got. I always start in Wooburg order. So we'll do green there, blue, white. We'll start going through these. We'll come back and look through these in more detail as we're going. Right now, I'm just trying to get a sense of what the makeup of this card pool looks like and what colors might make the most sense. So right now, that is a very, very good card there with Enduring Innocence, but we'll come back to that a little bit more. What I typically look for in building these decks, and I think this is pretty standard across the board for most deck builders as they're putting these things together, these types of decks or limited decks together, is really do I have enough removal? What does my creature count look like? Do I have evasive creatures? That one's interesting. I don't know that I've ever thought about actually trying to cast that in a limited environment, but that Doomsday Excruciator is definitely fun. I really enjoy from a limited perspective, for Duskmourn specifically, the way there is overlap, or the way the overlap exists between color pairs. One thing that I noticed, and we'll probably do some Bloomborough on this channel, that I noticed with Bloomborough as a limited format, for example, is that there was not a ton of overlap in themes or what the cards wanted to do between colors. So for example, if you had blue cards that were for the Frog deck, for example, in Bloomborough, those really did not synergize very well at all with blue cards that were for the Otter deck or the Spells Matter deck in Bloomborough. That doesn't seem to be the case for this format, or at least it doesn't seem to be the case for Duskmourn specifically. There is a lot more overlap because the focus is really on graveyard and enchantment. Things like the Manifest Dread cards, or things that have Delirium in black or green, overlap really nicely with things that have Manifest Dread, for example, in green on that side. So there's a lot of great synergy that you can find across the main themes in the set. Right. Jolly Balloon Man goes in this pile, and another Doomsday Excruciator, which is interesting. Alright, so let's take a look what we got here. In white. So right now I'm just going back through these, or just taking a look to see what kind of cards we actually have. This one's really nice for having Convoke. Trying to look at what removal do I have, what evasive creatures do I have in this context. Do I have anything that might be something I want to build around going forward? There's some pretty good themes, strong themes across some of these, but there isn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to stick to those in this set. So tab, I don't see a lot of, I see some good cards. So have the Enduring Innocence. So that is power 2 or less creatures matter, drawing a card. That is a good, pretty strong card in this format. Look at blue. Blue didn't feel like I had a lot of options, but I think there might be some strong cards in here. So removal, but at a pretty hefty cost. This is stun, that could be removal. So 3/3 for 4. Some more room synergy. Some more stun. More flying. Yeah, I don't think there's some good room stuff that I have in blue, but I don't think that's going to be next choice. Let's look at black. That's pretty nice. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, 6 black for a Doomsday Excruciator does not seem like something that is going to be possible unless he decided to go mono black, which doesn't necessarily feel like it's ever a good choice. There's some fun Reanimator stuff in here, but I don't really even get a lot of the good removal in black. I guess there's some there. Let's look at red. So we're thinking about either like a power 2 or less matters sort of thing, or potentially Pyroclasm. That's nice. Potentially some graveyard, some recursion type stuff. Some okay removal. What do I have here? This Oblivious Bookworm. Being able to draw cards, discard cards. I think it's really sort of fuel your graveyard, but also have something that synergizes with your overall Manifest Dread mechanic is also really nice. This one's pretty. Sawblade Skin Ripper is pretty good. 3/2 with menace. Be able to sacrifice. I'm wondering. So I got both of the signpost uncommons for red black. I'm gonna look back through red, black, and white here to see what I got. Maybe there might be something there. I do have some good fixing too for that. Alright, so I don't see really anything colorless there that is gonna matter. Let's look back through green. Delirium. Distribute 2+1/+1 counters among 2 targets. There's 6 double the counters. Wow, that's pretty good. This card is gigantic. I love that it's so huge, but it also helps you get back land cards. So if you've got this in your hand early game, and you've got your Terramorphic Expanse or your Manifesting Dread, you discard this. You can put a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so you can essentially ramp yourself, and also get this into your graveyard for you to get it later. All right, with that, I think let's take a look at red here again. I know I got some like these big boys from Mountain Cycling. If there's any way to get them back. More sacrifice synergy there in the Boiler Bilge's Ripper. Piggy Bank, their sacrifice fodder to get a treasure. It's a 3/2. Okay, I think for now, we can probably take one look over here. Unable to Scream is good removal, but I don't think I have enough in blue for me to actually move forward with it. Let me double check to see if there's anything that might make me change my mind here. So the main mechanics of this set are Delirium, so like 4 or more different card types in your graveyard unlock some things for some of these cards. That's a returning mechanic. And then new mechanics are Manifest Dread, which is essentially Manifest, except you get to look at the top 2 cards and put one face down as a 2/2. The other card goes into your graveyard. If it's a creature, you can turn that card face up at any time. So it essentially gives you more choice than Manifest does. And Eerie, which is one of the blue mechanic that's mostly in blue. Where you get something happens. It's like Constellation, where something happens when an enchantment enters. In this case, either an enchantment enters or you unlock a door to a room, so it gives you more value for your rooms that you're playing. But then you also have rooms, where rooms are enchantments that have 2 sides, and you can pay one of the costs to do different things. So there's a lot of graveyard and enchantment synergy sort of across the board. I don't think I'm going to have the right... creature makeup for this, but I'll take another look here. So I think what I'm doing, what I'm going to do here, is I think I have a little bit of a recursion theme and big creatures. Now the question is, do I want to play black in that? I don't really have a lot of the great removal in black. Play 4 colors probably does not feel right. What I've found is that you really want to try to be in 2 colors, 3 colors if you absolutely have to. And I just don't think there's a lot of great removal options for me, which is part of the problem. Didn't get any major bombs. cards, so we're not really able to pull from there. Definitely not playing those. Let's take a look at black one more time. Really love this possessed goat. I think as I've seen it do, you get to put, becomes a 4/4 for 4 essentially. You can play it on turn 1 as a 1/1. Gets stuff into your graveyard for delirium if you need to. Alright, green one more time. Say its name is very good in this format. Getting stuff into your graveyard is definitely important. Being able to look at that many cards and return a land card or a creature card, especially if you're playing Manifest Dread. I don't really have a lot of good Manifest cards, so I don't think that's something I'm going to be able to lean into. I think I'm going to have to go, probably start here and see if I can whittle down from there. So we're out on blue, we're out on green. I think we're going to be out here. I don't have a lot of activated abilities. So put those there. Look through here one more time. Alright, let's sort of lay these out and see what we got as far as curve. And then we'll keep building from there. One of the ways that one of the other tips that I've pulled from sort of Gavin Verhey is to how to break up your cards. So instead of just doing your curve straight across the board, really start looking at like what cards are you going to play on curve versus what cards are you going to play maybe off curve. Things like removal, things like counter spells, things like other spells or creatures that are more dictated by what is on the board, so you might want to hold off putting those onto the battlefield. But we'll start sort of building out our curve, and we'll take a little look as we're doing this what cards we can sort of immediately pull out. For example, like I'm just going to pull these Doomsday Excruciators out and put them over to the side. I don't think we're going to do that. Same with Demonic Console, despite how cool that card looks. So here's a good example of this. So these are all cards that I'd probably play on curve, but this Let's Play a Game, this one is definitely more dependent on what is on the board. Same with this Cracked Skull, because that is dependent on whether or not there's a creature, so you're not always going to play that card as your card when you drop your third land drop. This one is actually a little bit different because it comes with a creature. You get to Manifest Dread. This is a pump spell that you're probably not going to play on 3. Rooms, I haven't quite figured out how they play into this, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it really often depends on the type of effect it has. In this case, it deals 4 damage to target creature and opponent controls for 3, so I'll probably put it here and we can count it as removal, but it really depends. Let's look back through these piles and see the things we're definitely not going to play. So we got 1-drops. 5 lots of creatures. So I think I'm going to have to make a choice about whether or not I'm going to go with a sacrifice theme or I'm going to go with the sacrifice theme, which in turn has a graveyard theme, or I'm going to go aggressive with these creatures, because these are sort of aggressive, these are sort of sacrificey. Aggressive, these are sacrificey. So let's look in this pile, see what we got. this goes back to the building decks. I'm really looking for 23, about 23 spells. Right now I've got probably double that, so I need to cut about half of this out. So this one fits into that sacrifice thing. This one fits into the aggressive. These two are both kind of both. Alright, so now I gotta make a choice here. Do we want to go more aggressive, or do we want to go more sacrificey? There's a lot of cards in here that are pretty close. I don't think this Veteran Survivor is going to cut it. These two let me discard some cards to make that guy pretty big. This one lets me return that card. So we got 4, 8. No, this cheerleader is out of here. We're not going as aggressive, so these Orphans of the Wheat, I think, is probably out of here as well. Yeah, I think that's probably out of here as well. So is this Glimmer Light. So that leaves... We'll keep the removal, because that fits with the sacrifice thing. We'll keep Pyroclasm. These two are both removal, so we'll keep those. That was a maybe. That's a maybe. And these two we'll keep. So let's see what we're at. Count wise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Alright, we got too many here. So let's see. This one's just too good. I don't think getting -1, -1, even losing 3 life and gaining 3 life, I don't think that's going to be relevant enough. Let's look. 6, 7, 8. 4 more cuts. Keep that one. Keep murder. Keep that one. I think the restricted cultist is on my list here, but I just want to think. Actually, I think I'll put this one back and cut this one. It's very. I mean, it's good to recur. It's a 4/1, but I just don't think it's going to be something that I'm able to get back consistently. Do I have... Maybe this is a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. There's probably another option where I have some... where I have something that's different colors, either green, white, or even green, black, maybe. But 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. I think I'll get rid of this killer mask. I don't think that one's good. So that'll be 24, and one of them is Haunted Screen. I think that's probably good. And we'll do 16 lands. Let's check our curve one more time. I think we're a little top heavy, but those are later game plays. I think that's, if I was building this pool, that's where I would go. Let's maybe take a look at another option we could have went. These will obviously be in the deck, so 14 lands outside of those. I think there was a very... You could go with green for sure. And in maybe that case you do black-green. There really isn't a lot of manifest dread support that isn't in too many colors. But if you went black-green, I think you put some of these bigger creatures in, and it maybe takes a little bit more of an less graveyard, a little bit more of an aggressive approach. Now, since I'm doing the reanimator, do I even dare to put these two in there? I don't think so. Alright, so that is, there is the deck. These cards did not make the final cut. I will now put together the deck and we'll do a couple of opening hands. Alright, so let's take a look at what ended up in the final deck before we sort of jump into testing some starting hands. I'll also talk a little bit about what didn't make it in the deck and some other directions that the deck could have gone. For anybody interested, the full card pool from all of the packs I'll post on Moxfield, and there'll be a link in the description. I'll also have a link to the deck itself, what ended up being in the final deck, so folks can evaluate it for themselves or provide some thoughts on what they might have done with this card pool instead. I think we'll run through a little bit some of the categories of the deck here, and then talk a little bit about what I'm expecting the deck to do, and then we'll look at the different options that we had, and maybe talk through what could have been in the deck, or what the deck could have been from this pool going forward. So starting with removal, we've got unidentified hover ship, good exile removal, also doubles sort of as an opportunity to have a flying creature for some of the earlier later turns. Got Pyroclasm. Final Vengeance fits the overall sacrifice theme that we have, the sacrifice creature enchantment theme that we have as sort of part of the deck. Murder, just good removal. And then we've got Live or Die. While Live or Die is a little bit overcosted, but it also sort of doubles as a recursion spell, and there's also a sort of a recursion theme with the deck as well. Speaking of that recursion theme, we've got Bedhead Beastie, 2 copies of Bedhead Beastie. These are good for fixing early on with mountain cycling to get some of our mana base a little bit more correct or aligned with what we need for our deck at that particular moment, and then late game can come out of the graveyard or come down to be a big menace threat. We've got Emerge from the Cocoon, which I've found so far is a pretty strong card. Being able to return target creatures from a graveyard is pretty important, especially when we're going to be sacrificing a lot of creatures probably early on for some value, and the ability to gain 3 life late game is important. We've got Valgavoth's Faithful, again, has recursion ability on there as an activated ability. Can also be a threat to sacrifice, or something to sacrifice early game if we need to from one of our other effects. Then we get into Jolly Balloon Man, Possessed Goat, 2 copies of Possessed Goat, Unsettling Twins, 2 copies there, Clockwork Percussionist, Piggy Bank, and Innocuous Rats. These are all cards that, to me, fit really well with sort of early creatures, or coming down and making multiple creatures that we can use to make additional threats. And then Jolly Balloon Man, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to splash into white in the first place, as opposed to just sticking with black-red sacrifice. Having this down and being able to make copies of some of the creatures that have enter the battlefield triggers, or enters triggers, like Unsettling Twins, or just being able to make copies of creatures that you can sacrifice to other effects, or get sacrificed always at the end of the beginning of the next end step. I think that could be a pretty nice engine for this deck moving into sort of the later game. Hand That Feeds, Disturbing Mirth, Sawblade Skin Ripper, Boiler Bilge's Ripper. These are all, and even Cackling Slasher. These are all cards that sort of fit that sacrifice theme. Got both of the Signpost uncommons for the black-red sacrifice deck. So really, to me, that was these two cards along with Jolly Balloon Man were the reason why I wanted to build this deck in the first place. Sometimes when you're building a sealed deck or you're building a deck with this pool, there might be there's the most optimal play or the most optimal choice, and then there's a choice that sort of just feels right or that allows you to play with some of the cards that you want to test out or see how they work together. And I think the combination of these three cards here is really why I ended up in Mardu colors and why I ended up putting the deck together the way that I did. Then we've got Enduring Innocence. It's just great value. Can't avoid or don't want to waste using that when they have the opportunity. 2 lands for fixing 2 of the lands that enter tapped unless a player has 13 or less life. I think in most cases these are going to come in tapped, but they'll allow for some fixing. The Haunted Screen taps for both black and white for with no cost, and we can pay a life to tap it for red if we need to. And then have 5 mountains, 5 swamps, and 4 plains to round out the mountain mana base. Running with 16 lands, we'll see in our test hands if that's enough. We might need to swap out maybe one of these cards. Maybe this Hand That Feeds is sort of slightly adjacent to our theme, but having that Delirium trigger without as much stuff as we hope to put in the graveyard will probably be useful. So that's the deck, and again, the link to that deck list will be below if folks want to check that out. But what did I decide not to put in the deck? I think there were a couple of really hard choices, especially when we thought about like being able to use or focus on that Reanimator strategy. I think these 3 cards here, the 2 copies of Doomsday Excruciator and Spectral Snatcher, as big threats late game, especially coming out of the graveyard, to sort of ignore the Doomsday Excruciator trigger and not have to pay the 6 black for the mana cost, especially when we're only running 5 swamps. I think ultimately I just didn't see enough opportunity or didn't want to risk pulling those in early hands and not being able to play them and never being able to get them in the graveyard. Patched Plaything is one that I sat on for a long time. I think this is a really good card. I think this is a really strong uncommon. I think it's something that you could definitely make a case should go into this deck. Comes down early as a 2/1 double striker that has 2 -1/-1 counters on it if you cast it from your hand. That's really could be really impactful. And then late game, if you can get it either back out of your graveyard after you sacrifice it. This one, when I'm playing this one is going at the top of this card pool in the sideboard, or the top of the card pool in the sideboard, and is one that I'm probably really strongly considering putting in the deck and maybe swapping out something like that Haunted Screen or something else, depending on how the fixing goes. Fear of Immobility is another one that I thought was a really strong option for this deck, being able to come down, be a 4/4 when it enters, tap a target creature. If it's an opponent's creature, you can put a stun counter on it. Typically, one of the reasons why that's in the deck is for some of your survival cards being able to tap them, but also tap down threats on the opponent's side. I thought about this one, especially in sort of concert with Jolly Balloon Man, being able to make copies of this and tap down multiple creatures on your opponent's side. That's another one that would be right at the top of the sideboard. And then Let's Play a Game and Resurrected Cultist. I think we're close or right on the edge. I like Resurrected Cultist because you can get it back out of your graveyard if you've already got Delirium without having to pay one of the recursion spells. It just sort of got beat out by some of the other cards in my mind that were a little bit stronger, a little bit more fitting with the theme, a little bit lower curve. Even I found a couple of times when playing this card that if I'm having to pay that 4 mana to get it back out of the graveyard, I'm in a pretty bad spot on the board already, and it's probably going to lose that game no matter what. And then Killer's Mask, I think this is something that I considered, especially considering the fact that it makes a body that you can sacrifice. It's an artifact. If it goes in the graveyard, fits with Delirium. Just 3 mana to play and 2 mana to equip. That's 5 mana, probably too much for what we're trying to do within this deck. So what other directions could we have gone? Like we said when we were talking, I think there was definitely an opportunity to go with if it's even staying in these colors or even slimming down to just red and white. There was an opportunity to go with a little bit more aggressive, more aggro, low to the ground deck. I think looking at some of the folks that have the survival mechanic, if that was the case, I probably would have played that Fear of Immobility again, just because it makes it easy to tap down some of these creatures without risking them. Same with Orphans of Wheat. Veteran Survivor almost made it into the main deck just because it can be such a threat and an opportunity to remove cards from their opponent's graveyard, especially with all of the Delirium strategies or the focus on graveyard. I think that's a really strong card, but again, the deck didn't go that direction in my mind and what I felt most comfortable with. Glimmerlight, making a body, the most valuable Slayer, 2 copies there, could have gone into attacking. This deck would have been much more focused on playing a lot more creatures early on and trying to pump them in the late game to really attack and be aggressive. I think that was an option. The other option I think that we had that we didn't go with was something either in red green or black green, or maybe even Jund if it had to come to that. There was a lot of good cards in red green. I think some good combat tricks. 2 copies of Say Its Name would have been really helpful, really impactful. The Omnivorous Flytrap is a really good card, a really strong card in this format for sure. Being able to get those +1/+1 counters and that Delirium sort of scaling as the game goes on. Horrid Vigor and Monstrous Emergence for some removal, along with Cathartic Parting. And then Altanac, the Thrice Called, is a pretty big threat, and actually in the pre-release won a couple of games, being able to play multiple copies of Altanac, and that was pretty fun. And I think, like I said, there was an opportunity to go into green, and the deck probably would have been maybe just as strong or stronger than this deck, but I think looking at my card pool and where I felt comfortable, what I wanted to do with the deck, I think the direction I went was more for me. Alright, so let's look at a couple of test hands just to see how the deck is performing. I always like to do this, get them all sleeved up, get the cards all sleeved up, get the couple of shuffles going, get the test hands out, seeing what you're doing, do a little bit goldfishing early on. For me, I think the goals of this deck and the way I hope that it works, and we'll have to see how it plays out, but the way I envision it working in my head is playing creatures on turns 1, 2, and 3, and then looking for some of the sacrifice options that I have in turns 4, 5, and 6, and really starting to generate that value, start holding off their creatures, making copies of my creatures, hopefully if I can draw Jolly Balloon Man, and then getting some of those big threats into the bin so that you can pull them out later with the recursion pieces that we have. But let's see what these first couple of hands look like. We've got Swamp, Mountain, Neglected Manor, Cackling Slasher, Live or Die, and the Hover Ship. So let's organize a little bit. Put these like this so we can see. I think if we were playing, let's assume we're on the play. If we're on the play with this hand, I think this is something that probably would throw back and go to 6. There's an opportunity. I think you could keep this hand for sure. Definitely you have all 3 colors of our mana. That's going to be an important part, but we don't have 2 white sources to play the Unidentified Hover Ship on curve. If that's an option, again, this isn't necessarily something that we're expecting to play on turn 3 unless they've got a threat. There are a lot of early threats that would come down, so it's almost like we can expect to play that, but I think this is probably something I would throw back and go to 6 with. I think one of the things that, again, looking for in this deck really is a good amount of 1 and 2 drop creatures in that opening hand. That there are a number of 1 and 2 drops in the deck that we should expect we have at least one in that opening hand, in our opening hand. And if we don't, I think it's probably usually a good choice to ship it back and go down to 6. So we'll try here. I usually always offer a cut. Opponent can cut. I'll cut it. In this case, we'll just leave that one on the bottom. All right. See, well, this is what happens when you make that choice. When you have the mana available to you. This is a great hand, except for the fact that there is no lands. In all cases, this is a pretty... If we had 2 lands and swapped out any one of these other cards, I think it would be keepable. But going down to 5. I think we might be... The first hand had 4 lands. Second hand had no lands. It might be just the fact that this is sort of early shuffle. I did give it a plenty good shuffle, a couple of good shuffles before drawing that first hand. But you know, when you just put these things together, all your cards are lumped together. You gotta make sure you shuffle them and get them all separated. But we'll try again. We'll go to 5. Hate going to 5 in limited, especially, but this is definitely better. So let's see. Got the Raucous Carnival, 2 Plains, Clockwork Percussionist, the Sawblade Skin Ripper, the Unidentified Hover Ship, and the Haunted Screen. So I think this is definitely a keep, and I think what we're putting back is probably, we have to put 2 back, probably putting these 2 back for now. Shuffle those, put them on the bottom. And I think that would be our 5 for this game. So we would, it being on the play, we'll enter tapped. This turn 2. And I think we'd go from there. I think that was a little bit of a tough hand, tough choice to get rid of some of the removal and some of the other card options that we had. Again, we didn't have any black, so maybe the choice there was to keep the screen, the Haunted Screen. But I think that was an okay hand for having to go to 5. Let's do another one here. 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. Let's see what we got here. All right. I think I got, unfortunately, 1, 2, 3 swamps, a Possessed Goat, a Valgavalt's Faithful, a Piggy Bank, and a Murder. I think, depending on whether or not I was on the play or draw, let's say we're on the play before, let's say we're on the draw this time. We won our first game, because of course we always do. I think I probably do keep this. I got enough mana that I can get to turn 3. I can destroy a creature. If I don't draw any of my other colors in those turns, I can play a turn 1 play that can either be a blocker or something else. Or can sit on the battlefield and wait until we need to recur something. I can hope to draw one of the beasties to Mountain Cycle and get a mountain and then play the Piggy Bank. I think I probably keep this. Let's see what our first couple of draws are to see if it's a good choice. Yep, it's Never Punished. I think this is definitely something I could live with. Again, getting a treasure token will let me play the Possessed Goat. Those are the first 4 draws. I think this is probably ends up being okay. But we'll do one more just to see. We'll go back on the play. All right, let's try one more hand here. We'll go, I think I said go back on the play, but I think we'll or in this case, yeah, we'll assume we go back on the play again. This time we lost. This will be game 3 of our game here. So let's see. We go Swamp, 2 swamps, a mountain. Got the Haunted Screen again. And then we've got Murder, the Unidentified Hover Ship, and the Bedhead Beastie. I think this is probably something that we would mulligan. I don't think there's enough early. Again, I think it's going to be very difficult to keep, or for me to say that I would keep a hand that doesn't have a turn 1 and turn 2 play. There's enough 1 and 2 drops in this deck that there should be consistently have a turn 1 and turn 2 play. Obviously, that last hand was hoping for some other land drop, but I think at least having that play on turn 1 or turn 2, depending on whether or not you play the tap land, is definitely something that we need to shoot for. All right, so let's draw our 7 cards here. 7. So we're going to 6. Let's see what this hand looks like. We have 2 swamps, a mountain, a piggy bank, a saw, blade, skin ripper, final vengeance, and live or die. So I think this is a keep for sure. I think this is something where we can put this live or die on the bottom and live with these 6 cards. Go probably swamp and then mountain, depending on what the first draw is. Let's take a look at what it would be. Mountain, so it probably wouldn't matter either mountain or swamp, depending on which way we want to go. Do the piggy bank. We can come and put the saw blade skin ripper down. Eventually, we can sacrifice the piggy bank. Either we can block, or if we want to, we can sacrifice it to the skin ripper and end up dealing damage, or we can even sacrifice it to the final vengeance to get our treasure token back. I think this ends up being a decent start for us. All right, so that was episode 1. I really appreciate folks sticking through to the end. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are about the pool, what direction you would have gone with this card pool, what changes you might have made to either the deck I built or different deck selections that you would have made yourself. But again, hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you next time.